The massive ring station hung in space like a silver crown. Earth's first diplomatic ship approached slowly. Inside, Ambassador Junho Choi stood at the window and watched the alien structure grow larger. His hands were steady, but his heart was not. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for. The chance to join the Galactic Council. Captain Ji-won Park stood beside him. She wore her formal uniform, every metal polished. Behind them, the crew moved quietly through their tasks. Everyone knew what this meant. After 200 years of watching the stars, humanity finally had proof they were not alone. And now they wanted a seat at the table. Do-hyun Kim sat in the back corner of the bridge, away from the important people. He was not a diplomat or a soldier. He was just a scientist who studied alien life. His job was to stay quiet and take notes. He liked it that way. Less pressure. Less attention. The docking took an hour. When the doors finally opened, 3 alien beings waited for them. One looked like crystal made into a person. It glowed with soft blue light. One had feathers and bright yellow eyes like a bird. The third was covered in smooth scales and smelled like ocean water. The crystal being spoke first. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. It said its name was Arbitrator Vexithalan. It had lived for 10,000 years. It had seen many species come to ask for membership. Most failed. Ambassador Junho Choi bowed politely. He had practiced this moment 1,000 times. He presented Earth's application. He showed them human art, human music, human science. He talked about Earth's history and its hopes for the future. He spoke for 2 hours. The aliens listened without expression. When he finished, the bird alien spoke. Its name was Counselor Thren. It said that many species had interesting cultures. Culture was not enough. The galaxy needed to know if humans could survive, if they could adapt, if they deserved a place among the stars. Then Vexithalan explained the trial. Every species that wanted to join the council had to pass the gauntlet of origins. 7 different worlds, 7 different challenges. Each one designed to test survival in the harshest conditions. The rules were simple and absolute. No technology, no weapons, no tools of any kind, just the individual and nature. Captain Ji-won Park felt her stomach drop. She had prepared for negotiations, for tests of knowledge, for cultural exchanges. Not this. Not a survival trial where one human would represent the entire species. The scaled alien introduced itself as Counselor Morgan. It explained that of 247 species that had attempted the trial in the last 1,000 years, only 89 had succeeded. Many species evolved on gentle worlds where food was easy and danger was rare. They never learned to struggle. They never learned to fight for survival. The trial exposed this weakness. Counselor Thren looked at the humans with its bright yellow eyes. It said that humans appeared weak. Small bodies, thin skin, no claws or fangs, no natural armor. Thren did not think humans would survive even the first challenge. Perhaps it would be better if humans returned home and tried again in a few centuries. Captain Ji-won Park felt anger rise in her chest, but Ambassador Junho Choi placed a hand on her arm. He smiled at the aliens. He said that humanity would accept the trial. They had not come this far to turn back now. Vexithalan asked who would be humanity's champion. The room fell silent. Captain Park looked at her crew. She needed someone smart, someone calm, someone who could think clearly when everything went wrong. Her eyes found Do-hyun Kim in the corner. Do-hyun looked up, surprised. The captain walked over to him. She asked if he had ever done wilderness survival training. He nodded. Years of it, actually. Camping, hiking, primitive skills. It was his hobby. She asked if he was willing to do this, to represent Earth. Do-hyun thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Then he stood up and said yes. Captain Park smiled. She announced to the aliens that Do-hyun Kim would be Earth's champion. The aliens led them to a large chamber. Hundreds of other aliens filled the seats, representatives from council species. They came to watch. A young reptilian alien approached Do-hyun. She introduced herself as Zira. She would be his observer during the trial. She would monitor everything but could not help him. She wished him luck, though her voice suggested she did not think he would need much time before failing. Vexithalan described the first challenge. A desert world. Temperatures would swing from 50 degrees in the day to 15 below zero at night. Water would be scarce. Predators would hunt after dark. Most species spent the full 72 hours hiding and barely survived. Many died. Dr. So-min Lee, the ship's materials scientist, pushed through the crowd to reach Do-hyun. She was young and nervous. She told him she would be his support contact during the allowed communication windows. She promised to help however she could. Do-hyun thanked her and told her not to worry. He had camped in worse conditions. They gave him 30 minutes to prepare mentally. Do-hyun sat quietly with his eyes closed. He was not praying or panicking. He was thinking. Desert meant rocks. Rocks meant tools. Tools meant survival. When he opened his eyes, he was smiling. Captain Ji-won Park grabbed his shoulder. She told him to be careful, to come back safe, that Earth believed in him. Do-hyun nodded. Then he walked to the transport platform. Ambassador Junho Choi watched him go. The old diplomat had negotiated with presidents and kings. He had prevented wars and built alliances. But he had never felt so helpless. Everything now depended on one man and his ability to survive. The aliens watched the human with curiosity. Some with pity. They had seen many champions stand on that platform. Most came back broken if they came back at all. This human looked too calm, too confident. They did not understand what that confidence meant. Do-hyun stood on the platform and looked around the chamber one last time. He saw his crew, his people, his planet's hope. Then he looked at the aliens, at Counselor Thren, who thought humans were weak, at Vexthalin, who had seen thousands of species try and fail. The platform began to glow. Do-hyun took a deep breath. His last thought before the transport took him was simple. They said no tools allowed. That was fine. He would make his own. The light swallowed him. The chamber fell silent. On the viewing screens, they could see him materialize in the desert. The sun was brutal. The sand was endless. There was no water in sight. No shelter. No hope, except Do-hyun was already moving. He walked to a rock formation and knelt down. He picked up 2 stones. The aliens leaned forward. What was the human doing? Why was he playing with rocks? Then he struck the stones together. Once, twice, 3 times. Small chips flew off. The sound echoed through the observation chamber. And for the first time in 10,000 years, Arbitrator Vexthalin felt something like surprise. The human was not just surviving. He was creating. The trial had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn something about humanity that would change everything. The heat hit Do-hyun like a physical wall, 52 degrees. The air shimmered and danced. Sand stretched in every direction, broken only by scattered rocks and the occasional dead-looking plant. His mouth was already dry. His skin was already burning. This was going to be difficult, but difficult was not impossible. Do-hyun had studied deserts his entire career. He knew the rules. First rule, get out of the sun. He jogged to the nearest rock formation, a cluster of boulders that cast blessed shade. He sat down and forced himself to breathe slowly. Panic used energy. Energy used water. Water was life. On the ring station, the observation chamber was packed. Hundreds of aliens watched the screens. Counselor Thren sat with wings folded, looking bored. The human had found shade. That was basic survival. Nothing impressive yet. Zira, the young observer, spoke into her recording device. She noted that the human male appeared calm. His heart rate was elevated but stable. He was scanning the environment systematically. Standard behavior for someone lost in hostile territory. In the desert, Do-hyun studied the rocks around him. He needed specific types, something with silicon, something that would fracture in predictable ways. He stood up and walked along the rock formation, examining each stone carefully. After 10 minutes, he found what he needed, a piece of flint the size of his hand. He sat back down and picked up a harder river rock to use as a hammerstone. Then he began to work. He struck the flint at a precise angle. A chip flew off. He struck again. Another chip. The aliens in the observation chamber leaned forward. What was happening? Ambassador Junho Choi smiled. He recognized what Do-hyun was doing. It was called napping, one of humanity's oldest skills, turning stone into tools. He had seen demonstrations at museums, but seeing it done for real survival was different. It was beautiful strike, chip, strike, chip. Do-hyun worked patiently. The sound echoed through the alien chamber. Many aliens had never heard this sound before. The sound of creation. After 20 minutes, Do-hyun held up his work, a crude hand axe with a sharp edge. Counselor Thren stood up suddenly. This was not allowed. The human had created a weapon. This violated the rules. Vexthalan raised one crystalline hand. The rules stated no manufactured items were permitted, but the human had not brought this tool. He had made it from materials found in the environment. Technically, this was allowed. Counselor Morgan, the scaled alien, spoke for the first time. This was fascinating. Most species spent their trial time hiding and searching for food. This human was creating infrastructure. Morgan had never seen this behavior before. Do-hyun was not finished. He made a second tool, then a third, a scraping blade, a cutting edge, a pointed awl. Within an hour, he had 5 different tools laid out on the rock like a surgeon's instruments. Now he could really begin. Water was the priority. He had noticed something earlier. Some of the rocks at the base of the formation showed discoloration. That meant moisture collected there, probably from morning dew. He used his hand axe to dig. The aliens watched in silence as the human worked. 3 feet down, the sand was damp. Not much, but enough. Do-hyun dug a wider hole and lined it with rocks. Water would collect here overnight. He would survive. Next, food. The desert plants looked dead, but Do-hyun knew better. Many desert plants stored water and nutrients in their roots. He found a succulent with thick leaves. Using his blade, he cut one open. Clear liquid oozed out. He tasted it carefully. Bitter but not poisonous. He cut several more and placed them near his shelter. The sun moved across the sky. Temperature dropped slowly. Do-hyun worked constantly. He gathered dried plant material for cordage. He twisted fibers into string. He used the string to lash a stone blade to a long, straight stick. Now he had a spear. The aliens could not believe what they were seeing. Dr. So-min Lee watched from the Earth delegation section. She wanted to cheer but stayed professional. The communication window would open in 3 hours. She was preparing notes to help Do-hyun. But watching him work, she wondered if he even needed help. He moved like someone who had done this 1,000 times. As night fell, the temperature plummeted. 15 below zero within an hour. Do-hyun had prepared for this. He had gathered dry plant material and created a small fire pit. Now he needed fire. He took 2 sticks and began the friction method. A flat piece of wood. A spinning stick. Pressure and speed. The aliens had never seen fire made this way. Most species discovered fire by accident or received it as a gift from nature. Lightning strikes. Volcanic activity. The idea of creating fire from nothing was alien to them. Smoke appeared. Then a glowing ember. Do-hyun transferred it carefully to his tinder bundle and blew gently. Flame erupted. The observation chamber erupted too, half in amazement, half in fear. This human had created fire in less than a day. But the night was not safe. As Do-hyun fed his fire, movement appeared in the darkness. Eyes reflected the firelight. 6 legs, crystalline teeth. Pack hunters. At least 5 of them circling his position. Captain Ji-won Park gripped her armrest. She wanted to do something, anything, but this was the trial. Do-hyun was alone. He had to survive on his own. She could only watch and hope. Do-hyun stood slowly. He fed the fire until it blazed bright. The creatures hesitated. Fire was new to them, confusing, dangerous, but they were hungry. The alpha moved closer, testing. Do-hyun grabbed a burning branch and thrust it toward the creature. It jumped back. He grabbed his spear with the other hand. The creature circled, looking for weakness. They found none. The human turned constantly, keeping the fire between himself and the pack. The alpha decided to risk it. It charged. Do-hyun was ready. He threw the burning branch at its face. While it was distracted, he thrust with the spear. The stone point caught the creature in the shoulder. Not a killing blow, but enough. The alpha yelped and retreated. The pack followed. Silence returned to the desert. Do-hyun checked his spear. The binding had held. Good. He sat back down by the fire and added more wood. His hands were steady. His breathing was calm. Just another night camping. In the observation chamber, nobody spoke. 19 species had failed this first challenge. 19 species had died or nearly died in this same desert. The human had not just survived the first night. He had thrived. Counselor Morgan turned to Vexthalan. This changed everything. The human had demonstrated tool-making, fire creation, and tactical thinking, all in less than 12 hours. What would he do with 60 more? The answer came over the next 2 days. Do-hyun built a complete survival camp. He improved his water collection system. He created better tools. He set up a perimeter of sharpened stakes around his shelter. He made a bow drill for easier fire starting. He even crafted a simple shelter using rocks and plant material. When the communication window opened, Dr. So-min Lee asked if he needed help. Do-hyun thanked her but said he was fine. He asked if she could send him books about the next environment when this challenge ended. She promised she would. On hour 68, Do-hyun sent the completion signal. He had finished the challenge. When the transport brought him back to the ring station, he stepped off the platform looking tired but healthy. His hands were calloused. His skin was sunburned, but his eyes were bright. He carried his hand axe with him. When Vexthalon asked why, Do-hyun shrugged. It was a good tool. He might need it again. Could he keep it? The ancient arbiter looked at the crude stone implement, then at the human who had created it. After a long moment, Vexthalon nodded. The human could keep his rock. As Do-hyun rejoined his crew, the council chamber buzzed with conversation. The humans had passed the first challenge, but more importantly, they had revealed something about themselves, something the galaxy had never encountered before, a species that did not just use their environment. They weaponized it, and there were still 6 more challenges to go. The second challenge was announced 12 hours later. Do-hyun had rested, eaten, and received medical clearance. He was ready. The council gathered again to watch. This time the chamber was fuller. Word had spread about the human who made tools from rocks. Many species wanted to see if the first challenge was just luck. Vexthalon described the environment. A jungle world. Heavy gravity. Acidic rain that fell every few hours. Carnivorous plants. Poisonous insects. The canopy reached 200 feet high. The ground was a death trap. Previous challengers had a 62% survival rate. Many were injured. Some died. Counselor Thren spoke up. Surely now the human would fail. Jungles required climbing ability, which humans clearly lacked. They had no wings, no natural gripping limbs. The human would be forced to stay on the dangerous ground level. Thren gave the human less than a day. Do-hyun listened to the briefing with his usual calm expression. When asked if he was ready, he nodded. Captain Ji-won Park squeezed his shoulder. Ambassador Junho Choi bowed respectfully. Dr. So-min Lee handed him a mental map she had drawn of typical jungle plant structures. He thanked her and stepped onto the transport platform. The jungle hit him like a wet blanket. Heat, humidity. The air was so thick it felt like breathing soup. Rain fell in sheets, warm and stinging slightly on his skin. The acid was mild, but constant exposure would be bad. He needed shelter immediately. But Do-hyun did not run for cover. Instead, he walked through the rain examining plants. Thick vines hung everywhere. He pulled on one. Strong, fibrous, perfect. He used his stone hand axe, still with him from the desert, to cut several long sections of vine. The aliens watched in confusion. The human was getting soaked. The rain was acidic. Why was he collecting plants instead of seeking shelter? Zyra noted in her report that human behavior continued to be unusual and possibly self-destructive. Do-hyun worked quickly. He stripped the outer bark from the vines. Underneath was stringy fiber. He began twisting it between his palms. The motion was automatic, learned in childhood. Twist, pull, twist, pull. Within minutes, he had created cordage, rope made from plants. Dr. So-min Lee gasped in the observation chamber. Of course, rope. With rope, you could do anything: climb, build, trap, transport. It was the universal tool, and Do-hyun was making it while standing in acid rain like it was nothing. For 6 hours, Do-hyun made rope. He worked through the rain. He ignored the discomfort. By the time the rain stopped, he had over 200 feet of braided cordage in various thicknesses. Now the real work could begin. He studied the canopy. The middle layer looked safest, high enough to avoid ground predators, low enough to be reachable. He selected a sturdy tree and tested the lower branches. Then he began to climb. The aliens leaned forward. Humans were not known for climbing ability, but Do-hyun moved steadily upward, using his rope to secure himself at each stage. At 40 feet up, he found a good spot. 3 large branches formed a natural platform. He used his rope to lash together a floor. Then he built up walls using smaller branches and large leaves. He created a roof that would shed the acid rain. Within 4 hours, he had a complete suspended shelter, but he did not stop there. He built a rope ladder for easy access. He rigged a water collection system using large leaves funneled into a vine container. He created a drying rack for his cordage. He even made a simple pulley system to haul materials up and down. Counselor Morgan spoke quietly to Vexthalon. The human is not just surviving. He is building infrastructure. This is engineering. The Arbiter agreed. In 24 hours, the human had transformed hostile jungle into a functional habitat. Night fell. The jungle came alive with sounds, howls, clicks, screams. Things moved in the darkness below. Do-hyun sat in his shelter, safe and dry, working on his next project. He was making snares, small rope loops that would tighten when triggered. He set them on branches near his shelter. By morning, 3 had caught small animals. Breakfast. Day 2 brought new challenges. Do-hyun needed to explore, find food sources, map the area, but the ground was dangerous and climbing down and up repeatedly would waste energy. So he built bridges, rope bridges connecting his tree to neighboring trees. Soon he had a network of aerial pathways. The aliens could not comprehend what they were seeing. This was supposed to be a survival test. The human had turned it into a construction project. He moved through the canopy like he owned it. He set up multiple camps. He created cache sites for supplies. He even built a fishing net for the jungle streams. Zira reported her observations to the council. The human shows no signs of stress. His heart rate is normal. He appears to be enjoying himself. She did not understand how this was possible. The jungle was deadly, but the human treated it like a playground. On day 3, trouble found him. A predator, massive, something like a praying mantis crossed with a tiger, 15 feet long with blade-like arms. It hunted in the canopy. It spotted Do-hyun and stalked closer. Captain Ji-won Park stood up in the observation chamber. This creature had killed 2 previous challengers. It was fast and deadly. Do-hyun had no weapons except his stone axe. She wanted to order an emergency extraction, but Ambassador Junho Choi held up his hand. Wait, watch. Do-hyun saw the predator. He did not panic. Instead, he retreated across his rope bridge to another tree. The creature followed. Do-hyun moved to another bridge, then another. He was leading it somewhere. The aliens realized he had a plan. The predator charged across a bridge. Its weight triggered hidden snares. Rope loops tightened around its legs. It stumbled. More snares activated. Within seconds, the creature was tangled in a web of rope. It thrashed and screamed but could not break free. A deadfall trap activated. Heavy logs Do-hyun had positioned earlier fell, not on the creature but around it, creating a cage. The predator was trapped, completely immobilized. Do-hyun had turned his rope network into a massive trap system, but here was the surprising part. Do-hyun did not kill it. He simply moved his camps to a different section of the canopy. The creature would free itself eventually. He did not need to kill. He just needed it to leave him alone. The aliens found this mercy fascinating and terrifying. The human had complete control. The communication window opened. Dr. Soman Lee congratulated him on his rope work. She asked if he needed anything. Do-hyun said he was fine. He asked if she could tell him about the third environment. She said it was mountains, cold. He thanked her and returned to work. By hour 59, Do-hyun had built a rope network so extensive that observers suggested preserving it for study. He had created suspended shelters, bridges, traps, storage platforms, and even a primitive elevator system. The jungle was no longer hostile territory. It was his home. He sent the completion signal early. When transported back, he looked healthy and energized. He even brought samples of his rope to show the crew. Captain Ji-won Park hugged him. Ambassador Junho Choi smiled. They had passed 2 challenges. 5 more to go. The council chamber buzzed with debate. Counselor Thren stood and demanded a review of the rules. This was not normal survival behavior. Humans were exploiting loopholes. They were supposed to struggle, not thrive. Bex Thalin called for order. The rules were written by species who never needed to think about creating tools. The humans had revealed a flaw in the trial design. But the rules were clear. Do-hyun had not violated them. He had simply used them in ways no one anticipated. Counselor Morgan added that perhaps this was exactly what the trial was meant to. Test adaptability, innovation, the ability to see resources where others saw nothing. Humanity embodied these qualities. That should be celebrated, not punished. The debate continued for hours, but the decision was already made. Do-hyun would continue to the third challenge, and the galaxy would continue to watch, because everyone wanted to see what the human would create next. After all, if he could make weapons from rocks and tools from vines, what would he do in the mountains with wood and stone? The answer would come soon enough. The third challenge briefing took place in a tense atmosphere. The council was divided. Half wanted to see Do-Yun continue. Half wanted the trial stopped. Counselor Thren led the opposition. Humans were too dangerous, too clever, too willing to weaponize everything. This needed to end, but Vexthalin ruled the trial would continue. The next environment was announced. Alpine mountains. Thin atmosphere. Sub-zero temperatures. 15 kilometers of treacherous terrain to cross, and megafauna predators that killed for food and sport. Only 70% of challengers survived this one. 23% gave up and called for extraction. Do-Yun listened carefully. Mountains meant wood. Straight young trees. He could work with that. When the briefing ended, he asked Dr. Soman Lee for one piece of information. How large were these predators? She checked her data. 15 feet tall, heavily built. Like bears crossed with mammoths. Do-Yun nodded. He had hunted before. Just never anything that big. Captain Ji-Won Park pulled him aside. She told him he did not have to do this. 2 challenges were impressive. No one would blame him for stopping. Do-Yun smiled and said he was just getting started. 3 down, 4 to go. She shook her head, but she was smiling too. The transport took him to a sparse forest zone. Temperature was already well below freezing. Snow crunched under his feet. His breath made clouds in the air. The valley he needed to reach was visible in the distance, 15 kilometers through mountain passes. Previous challengers had taken an average of 11 hours. Most ran the entire way trying to stay warm. Do-Hyun did not run. Instead, he spent the first hour in the forest. He selected 6 young saplings, straight, strong, perfect length. He used his stone axe to cut them down. Then he sat and began shaping them. The aliens watched in confusion. Why was the human making sticks? Time was critical. He needed to move. But Do-Hyun knew something the aliens did not. Preparation was more important than speed. He sharpened each sapling into a point. He hardened the tips in a small fire he created using his bow drill method. He created spears, 6 of them. Then he used plant fiber cordage to fashion them into a carrying bundle. Next he made snowshoes. Bent saplings lashed together with cordage in a rough frame. They would not win design awards, but they would keep him from sinking in deep snow. 2 hours had passed. The aliens thought he was wasting time. But Ambassador Junho Choi understood. Tools first. Movement second. This was the human way. Do-Yun began his trek. He moved steadily, using the spears as walking sticks to test for hidden ice. Every 3 kilometers he stopped. He gathered rocks. He built small shelters. Walls of stone with roofs of branches. Inside each one he prepared fire materials. If he needed to retreat, he would have safe havens. The aliens realized he was not just crossing the mountains. He was establishing infrastructure, Dr. Soman Lee explained to curious council members. Humans do not just survive in an environment. They modify it. They claim it. They make it theirs. This behavior is instinctive. Even in a 72-hour trial, the human cannot help but build. At kilometer 8, Do-Hyun encountered the first predator. It stood in the main pass, massive, covered in thick fur. Crystalline tusks that caught the light. It was eating something. Probably a previous challenger's remains. When it saw Do-Hyun, it stood up on hind legs and roared. The sound echoed through the mountains. In the observation chamber, several aliens flinched. This creature had killed 3 challengers in the past century. It was the apex predator of the mountain trial. Most species that encountered it either ran or died. Do-Hyun did neither. He stood still and studied the creature. He watched how it moved, how it positioned its weight, where its eyes focused. For a full minute, he just observed. The predator, confused by this lack of fear, hesitated. Then Do-Hyun did something that shocked everyone. He threw a spear, not at the creature, near it. The spear thunked into snow 3 feet from the predator's face. The creature jumped back. Do-Hyun noted the reaction time, noted which direction it dodged, gathered data. The predator roared again and charged. Do-Hyun ran, but not away. He ran at an angle, forcing the creature to turn hard, burn energy. He led it up a slope, made it work for every step. When he had enough distance, he stopped and threw another spear. This one grazed the creature's shoulder. Not deep, just annoying. Captain Ji-Won Park realized what Do-Hyun was doing. He was hunting. Not running away, not hiding. Hunting. A creature 3 times his size and 10 times his weight. She wanted to scream at him to stop. But she could not. She could only watch. For 6 hours, Do-hyun harassed the predator. He stayed just out of reach. He used terrain to his advantage. He made the creature chase him uphill, through deep snow, over rough ground. He threw spears when it got too close. Each throw was calculated, not to kill, just to wound, just to tire. This was persistence hunting, one of humanity's oldest strategies. Humans were not fast, but they could run forever. They could track prey for days, wear it down, exhaust it, then move in for the kill. Modern humans had mostly forgotten this skill. But Do-hyun had studied it, practiced it, perfected it. The predator was bleeding from a dozen small wounds. Its breathing was labored. The thin atmosphere and constant exertion were taking their toll. It could not understand why the tiny prey would not run away properly, would not give up, would not die. Finally, the creature collapsed, just dropped in the snow from exhaustion. Do-hyun approached carefully. He circled it. The predator tried to stand, but its legs would not cooperate. All that chasing, all that energy spent, it had nothing left. Do-hyun took his last spear. During the 6-hour hunt, he had studied the creature's anatomy. He knew where the heart was, where the major blood vessels ran. He moved to the creature's side, positioned himself carefully, then drove the spear home. One thrust. Precise and clean. The predator shuddered and was still. The observation chamber was absolutely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. They had just watched a human hunt and kill a creature that by all logic should have killed him, and he did it with sharpened sticks, with tactics, with patience, with skill that came from millions of years of evolution. Counselor Thren stood up and left the chamber. Several others followed. They had seen enough. Humanity was too dangerous, too capable, too willing to fight. If humans could do this with primitive weapons, what could they do with real technology? It was terrifying. But Counselor Morgan stayed. So did many others, because they understood something important. Most council species had evolved as prey that became predators, or as herbivores that never faced serious threats. Humanity was different. Humanity fought for dominance every single day for millions of years. They learned to hunt the hunters, to kill the killers. On the mountain, Do-hyun was not finished. He used his stone blade to skin the creature. He made a crude hide cloak to stay warm. He harvested meat. He created a travois using branches and the hide. He would not waste this kill. Every part had value. He reached the valley shelter at hour 34. He was pulling a sled of supplies, wearing furs, carrying new weapons he had crafted from the creature's bones. He had not just survived the mountain, he had conquered it. When transported back, Do-hyun apologized for taking so long. The hunting had added time, but he thought it was important to test his skills against the local wildlife. Vexthalin did not know how to respond. Test his skills. As if hunting megafauna was a training exercise, Ambassador Junho Choi met him with a smile. 3 challenges complete. Do-hyun had proven that humans could make tools, build infrastructure, and hunt apex predators. What more could the council ask for? But even as he thought this, he knew the answer. 4 more challenges. 4 more chances for Do-hyun to show the galaxy what humanity could do. The galaxy was starting to realize something. When the trial said no tools allowed, humans heard it as a challenge, not a limitation. Make your own tools, make your own weapons, make your own destiny. That was the human way. And the council was beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology. It was their refusal to accept that anything was impossible. Give a human rocks and they make knives. Give them vines and they make rope. Give them wood and they make spears. Give them nothing and they make something. That was what made them dangerous. And that was what made them valuable. The council called an emergency session. It had never happened before in the 10,000-year history of the trial. But the human had changed everything. After 3 challenges, the debate could not wait. They needed to decide if humanity should continue. The chamber was packed. Representatives from all 3,000 council species attended. Some came in person. Others appeared as holograms. Everyone had an opinion. The humans sat in a designated area, surrounded by their supporters and opponents. Counselor Thren opened the opposition argument. The human had violated the spirit of the trial. Yes, technically the rules allowed what he did, But the rules were written assuming no species would weaponize their environment so efficiently. The trial was meant to test survival, not engineering. Humans were exploiting loopholes. This must stop. 100 species voiced agreement. The human was too dangerous, too clever, too violent. He had killed a predator that most species avoided. He built infrastructure and environments meant to break the spirit. This was not the kind of species the council needed. Captain Jiwon Park wanted to stand and argue, wanted to defend her species and her crew member. But Ambassador Junho Choi held up his hand. Wait. They had prepared for this. Let the opposition tire itself out. Then strike. After 2 hours of debate, Vexthallen called for order. The Crystal Arbiter's voice cut through the noise. The humans would be given a chance to respond, to explain their behavior, to justify their methods. Ambassador Junho Choi stood and bowed respectfully. He thanked the council for this opportunity, but he did not speak first. Instead, Dr. Soman Lee approached the center of the chamber. She was nervous. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice was steady. She was a scientist. She would present facts. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared. Ancient stone tools, hand axes from 2 million years ago, primitive spears, fire pits, cave paintings, the archaeological record of human development. She explained each image carefully. Simply, humans have made tools for 2 million years. Modern humans have existed for 300,000 years. For 70,000 years, humans survived ice ages, periods where most of Earth was frozen, where food was scarce, where every day was a fight to live. Humans did not have thick fur or sharp claws. They had minds that could create solutions. She showed more images. Humans making rope from plants, creating fire from friction, building shelters from branches and leaves. These were not advanced technologies. These were survival basics. Every human child learned them. Every human carried this knowledge in their genetic memory. The chamber grew quiet. The aliens were starting to understand. This was not a clever human exploiting rules. This was a human being human. Tool-making was not technology for humans. It was biology. Ambassador Junho Choi took over. He spoke calmly, but his words carried weight. The council asked species to survive without tools. But for humans, making tools was surviving. A bird built nest. A beaver built dams. A human knapped stone axes. These were all the same thing. Using available resources to ensure survival, he continued. Denying humans the right to make tools was like denying an aquatic species access to water, like denying a flying species the ability to use its wings. Tool creation was not something humans did. It was something humans were. Counselor Morgan stood. The scaled alien had been quiet until now. But this was important. Morgan revealed something the council did not talk about often. His own species had nearly failed the trial. They lost 40% of their challengers before one individual accidentally discovered fire. They did not know fire could be created. They thought it was a gift from nature. Most council species evolved on easy worlds, gentle climates, abundant food, no serious predators. They became intelligent through social interaction, not survival pressure. Humans were different. Humans fought for every meal, every shelter, every day of life. They evolved intelligence as a weapon, as armor, as salvation. This was why the trial existed. To find species with adaptability, species that could thrive in harsh conditions, species that could solve problems creatively. Humanity embodied all these qualities. Rejecting them because they were too good at the trial was absurd. Vexthallen listened to everything. The ancient arbiter had overseen this trial for 10,000 years, had seen thousands of species attempt it. Most species approached the trial with fear, with resignation, with the hope of merely surviving. The human approached it with confidence, with creativity. With joy, Zira, the young observer, was called to testify. She had spent weeks monitoring Do-hyun. She reported her observations. The human never panicked, never despaired. His heart rate remained steady even during the predator encounter. His hands were never idle. Even during rest periods, he improved tools or made new ones. She said something that made the council pause. Humans view their environment as a resource store. Everything is a potential tool waiting to be recognized. This was not learned behavior. This was instinct. Do-hyun did not think about making tools. He just made them. Like breathing, like walking, the debate continued for hours. But slowly the tide turned. More species spoke in favor of humanity. They recognized that the trial had revealed a blind spot in galactic understanding. Most species thought of tools as advanced technology. Humans thought of tools as extensions of their bodies. Vextalan finally made a ruling. This would go in the history records. This would change how the Council understood survival evolution. The human was not violating trial rules. The rules were written by species who never needed to conceptualize toolmaking as survival instinct. This was a limitation of the trial, not of humanity. Do-hyun Kim would continue the trial. However, the Council would study human methodology to potentially revise trial parameters for future species. Humanity had revealed that the galaxy understood survival too narrowly. That understanding would change. Starting now, the vote was called. 2,847 species voted to allow humanity to continue. 153 voted against. Councillor Thren's faction was outvoted. The trial would proceed. Captain Ji-won Park exhaled. She had not realized she was holding her breath. Ambassador Junho Choi smiled. Dr. So-min Lee collapsed in her chair, exhausted. They had won. Not just the vote, but something more important. Recognition, understanding, respect. Do-hyun himself sat quietly through all of this. When asked how he felt about the controversy, he shrugged. He was just doing what came naturally. If the galaxy found that impressive, that was fine. If they found it scary, that was also fine. He did not need their approval. He just needed to finish the trial. The chamber cleared slowly. Aliens talked in groups. Arguments continued. But everyone agreed on one thing. They wanted to see the rest of the trial. Betting markets emerged across the galaxy. Millions watched the broadcasts. The human had become the most popular trial participant in history. That night, the human delegation celebrated quietly. Captain Park opened a bottle of Earth whiskey she had brought for emergencies. This qualified. They drank and talked and laughed. The pressure was off. They could continue. Do-hyun asked Dr. So-min Lee about the fourth challenge. She pulled up her notes. A swamp world, hot, humid, toxic plants, venomous creatures. He nodded, sounded like fun. She shook her head. Only Do-hyun would call a deadly swamp fun. In a quiet corner of the station, Zira watched the human delegation celebrate. She had started this assignment thinking humans were just another species. Weak, unimpressive. But she had learned something. Humans were not weak. They were adaptive. They were creative. They were unstoppable. She requested transfer to the human observation team permanently. She wanted to understand this species better, to learn from them. Because if humans could make weapons from rocks and rope from plants and fire from sticks, what else could they do? What other skills did they hide? The galaxy was about to find out. 4 challenges remained. 4 more chances for humanity to prove they belonged among the stars. 4 more chances for Do-hyun to show what humans could create when they had nothing. And everyone knew the answer would be remarkable. Because humans did not see limitations. They saw possibilities. They did not see obstacles. They saw opportunities. They did not see hostile environments. They saw hardware stores waiting to be opened. The trial would continue. The galaxy would watch. And humanity would do what humans do best. Make something from nothing. Create hope from desperation. Build civilization from chaos. After all, that was what they had always done.